Our Favorite Tools for Entrepreneurs podcast will address tools that are useful for startups and existing businesses. We will also cover other aspects of the launch and growth of entrepreneurial ventures. Your two hosts will be Professor Gary Palin and serial entrepreneur Ryan Budden. I am Professor Gary Palin.
Yeah, and I'm Ryan Budden.
This podcast is valuable to entrepreneurs in both launch and growth modes.
That's absolutely right. We'll go over some tools, get you into hyper-growth mode. How can we see some hockey stick growth in your business?
Well, hello, Ryan. How are you doing today?
Very well. What about you, Professor Palin?
Oh, enjoying a nice fall day.
Yeah, I think we skipped that over here, unfortunately.
You missed that part of it. It'll come back. Just wait around for a few more minutes.
Yeah, what's the fake fall, right?
That's right. Ryan, today I wanted to talk about the concept of how entrepreneurs can get so much accomplished very often in short periods of time. Mm-hmm. And there's an old saying that if you're going to assign a task to someone, intuitively you would think, well, find the person who is not busy and they'll have the time to do it. When reality is you should assign it to the person who doesn't have time to do it because they know how to get things done. And the person who's not busy is not busy because they don't know how to get anything done.
Yeah, they look not busy, but it's in fact because they're not putting anything across the table.
Exactly. So what are your thoughts on how do entrepreneurs get so much done and very often in a consolidated, concentrated time frame?
Yeah, so this is a great concept, right? Because it's something that really does distinguish successful entrepreneurs from regular people in the workforce or not successful entrepreneurs. And I think so much of it is just the attitude. It's how you approach issues. It's the tenacity and the, excitement for getting things done.
Yeah, I would agree. And I know on the projects that you and I have worked on, we talk about when you're attacking and addressing these things, it seems to be a continuous attack. It's not a lot of breaks in the action when you're really focused on a particular task.
That's exactly right. And, there's lots of tools to get into that and stay organized. But at the end of the day, so much of it is purely mentality.
It has to be done, so therefore you do it. There's no excuses for not doing it. It has to be done.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I think, is because if a task gets completed, so typically in entrepreneurship, it's smaller teams, right? You get into, startups of varying member sizes, but there's real transparency on who's doing the work, who's moving stuff across the table. So no one has anywhere to hide. You're directly responsible for the result that comes out at the end of the day, the week, the month, the year.
Yeah, that's true. And it always goes back to a lot of areas we've already spoken with. But I start off with passions because when people are working on an entrepreneurial venture, I always encourage them to get into an area they're very passionate about. And then it doesn't seem like a lot of work and the time flies by because you're really interested in what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that's, similar to the concept of the zone of genius, right? Stay in something that you have a unique ability around, and you're going to be able to move those tasks organically across the board. For me, finance is not it. I'm not built to go through spreadsheets and work that out. And I realize that. And
it's interesting, to tie to a previous podcast, we talked about Pareto's principle of the 80-20 rule is to identify what's important. And I would think that's one of the big factors in able to accomplish is get your priorities straight and address the important issues first.
Oh, absolutely. I've had a lot of mentors tell me if it can be done in under 5 minutes, just do it. Don't even take the time to write it down. Just get it done. And I think that is a characteristic of that tenacity, of that, willingness to get things done that you do see in successful entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I do that with even things as simple as responding to emails. If it's just something I can just write off a quick response, I do it versus saying I'll get to it later because I never get to it later.
Right. You let that red message go away and it never comes back up to the top of the list.
Yeah, when it slides off the screen, it doesn't exist any longer.
That's exactly right.
Attacking the issues when they face you, I think is one of the keys is to identify the next task and then do that task now.
Yeah, and see it to completion. I often see that the volume of work that perceivably needs to get done can sometimes be a tidal wave, and people don't trudge ahead. They're trying to sort of shore up the whole beach, to use the same analogy, at the same time, instead of really building a good foundation in a couple places.
Often when you're looking and you ask someone for a time frame on when things can be accomplished, and they'll say 2 weeks or any random particular point in time. But in reality, you're probably talking 5 hours of work.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that funny?
So that's referred to as dead space. I don't know if you've ever heard that term.
No.
They stretch it out because they're juggling so many activities. Instead of just hitting the 5 hours and getting it done, they extend their deadlines to 2 weeks, and they do that with multiple projects, and it creates a lot of inefficiencies because you have to go back and say, okay, where was I? And it's almost like accelerating a car. You can't immediately be at 60 miles an hour. You have to accelerate back into the project, and that kills a lot of time.
Oh, absolutely. So I do every day I have a whiteboard. I do daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals. And if something stays in one of the categories before it becomes a daily goal, it just annoys me. I can't stand it staying in that monthly goal. And you're right. Oftentimes it seems like a lofty thing. You've set it at 2 weeks, say, but if you really sat down, got to work on it, it probably is 4 or 5 hours. 6 hours would be a monumental task.
So in addition to identifying the task and doing that task right now, then when that task is over, I ask the same question: what's the next task?
Right.
And I attack that task, and it's just a continual cycle. And it's amazing how much you can get done when you have that mentality.
That's exactly right. Yeah, people talk about, the flow state. Well, if you have that mentality sort of, and things are lined up in front of you, you don't have the ability for your brain to be dragged away. You don't, sitting wondering around, what am I going to do next?
Another thing that I find interesting when I look at entrepreneurs, most people, they perform one action to get one benefit, where entrepreneurs very often will perform one action and they get multiple benefits from that one action. And that accelerates accomplishment.
Yeah, that is an interesting concept. I don't know that I would have really thought of that one. But yeah, one task that's going to benefit multiple parts of the organization, or creating something that can be blue stamped over and over again inside of their organization to increase efficiency.
Yeah, and it could be something as simple as going to a networking event. Most people go to the networking event, let's say, looking for customers. Where someone who's truly entrepreneurial, well, yes, we want to identify customers, but we're also looking to identify strategic partners, suppliers, maybe professional services. There's all types of activities that you can accomplish while you're there, instead of just being myopic and saying, I want to just meet some customers.
Yeah, looking for competitors, seeing what other people are doing well, always looking for the edge.
I'm sure someone listening is saying, well, that sounds exhausting. Do you ever stop? And one of the things that I always advise, though, is stop and celebrate your successes, as small as they are. Celebrate that accomplishment of we finished this particular project or finished this component of the code. And then the next day, get back to it.
Yeah, celebrating small wins is key. The mental break is really required, especially really, and this doesn't really matter what part of the organization you're in. As you put, celebrate a release in the coding platform, celebrate a sale, celebrate a strategic partner. But getting out of the rubber grinding routine can sometimes be huge mentally.
Yeah, another obstacle I see when I'm addressing issues or obstacles that are being faced, a lot of times I'll speak to people and they'll say, oh, I've got to solve this problem. How am I going to solve this issue, this obstacle? And I always take the approach is, there is a solution. Now it's just merely our team's task to find the solution, but it will come. And that takes a lot of the pressure of we've got to find the solution. I know it's coming. When it's coming is a question, but if you keep plugging at it, the answer will be there. And ironically, once you find the answer, very often you're saying, wow, that was really simple. Why didn't I think of that previously?
Yeah. Finding out what you don't know.
For sure.
So I'm sure another question that people are thinking is, we've talked a lot about, you need this mentality. It is sort of the differentiation point. Is it something you can develop? Are certain people born with it? How do you go about thinking about it in that way?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I see the obstacles of people stressing out over these issues, and I don't know if that's inherent or a personality trait, or if you can eliminate that. But I would just keep it all in mind from the perspective is you're looking for a goal and set incentives to achieve the goal, and don't put undue pressure on yourself to reach that goal. Very often it takes longer than you anticipated. Usually it takes a lot longer than you anticipated.
Yeah.
But don't stress out about it. So I don't know if that can be taught, if that can be something that's acquired.
Sure. Yeah, it's the small chunks. Do one thing well over and over and over again. Very few people tackle the whole tidal wave at once.
Yeah, there's an old saying, do you know the best way to eat an elephant?
Yeah, one bite at a time.
That's it. And that's the only way you can attack these issues of driving a business.
Exactly right.
Well, are there any other issues, which I think this is a very important topic, but any other thoughts you have before we conclude?
No, I would just say the key for me in all of this is just getting excited. What can you do every day to get excited about it?
Yeah, I agree. That goes back to the comments we made about identify your passions and get involved in businesses that you really enjoy and it doesn't feel like work.
Because this is hard. There's no getting around that.
Yeah, if I knew the easy path, I promise I would be sharing it. Or I might not be sharing it. I might be in Tahiti having a nice cool drink.
Yeah, that's right.
But it is hard, and there's no easy path that I've ever found.
Exactly right. It's people that are willing to put more work than others that are often the ones that are more successful than others.
Very good. Excellent. Well, I appreciate it, Ryan. You have a great day.
You as well.
Thanks for listening to our Favorite Tools for Entrepreneurs podcast with Professor Gary Palin and Ryan Budden. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into topics that assist with the launch and growth of your entrepreneurial venture. As always, you can head over to ProfSpirit.com to check out more resources and courses designed for you, the entrepreneur. Also, please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube to get the most up-to-date information as it is released.